Here on Flow, good to be chatting again with Adrian Pederick, the Shadow Minister for Emergency Services. Adrian, how are you going today?
Yeah, not too bad, Ricky. How are you?
All right, thanks. Look, we wanted to speak with you further about this remarkable release that came out from the CFS about volunteers being called out to ambulance incidents. Among other things, it'd have to be an impediment to people wanting to even volunteer for the CFS if this is what's going on.
Well, that's what I fear. We've got over 13,000 volunteers in the CFS, and I'm very proud to be one of those myself. But the thing is, we need our CFS firefighters, as they are, to be fully operational, to be ready for fires and other emergencies, whether they be in built-up areas or obviously across farmland and the regions in our state. I mean, to be diverted to emergency activities where Peter Malinauskas, the Premier of this state, said that he would fix the ramping crisis. The ramping crisis is worse than it's ever been. Sadly, we have seen someone pass away waiting for an ambulance, and now we're having the thousands of CFS volunteers being called upon by the Malinauskas Labor government to be first-line responders in doing medical emergency work on the side of the road or in any location across the state. It is outrageous, and it has to be addressed in other ways.
Yeah, well, to see the CFS spokesperson, Chief Officer Mark Jones, popping up and making these comments saying they're not funded for any of these non-statutory roles, and even if they're saying, well, we want funding to assist with this, isn't that sort of a secondary step to what you're talking about, is getting their health service to actually be able to respond to these incidents in the first place? Well,
exactly, and that's why you have a health service, and our health services do an amazing job. But the problem we have, we've got a government that went to an election, promised everyone they'd fix the ramping crisis, the Malinauskas Labor government, and it's a disaster. Sadly, when this tragic incident happened the other day, we understand they were 20 ambulances short on the day. We've also got the ambulance union has stayed silent. Where's Ashley Ambo? They used to chalk ambulances coming into the state election, but have barely made a noise since this tragic event. And the serious thing is, if there was going to be training across the board, to train over 13,000 people would cost millions of dollars. And they also, if that happened, would need mental health support for on top of what they already face, whether it's in vehicle accidents, in fires or fire scenes across the state. And it's just untenable. It is just totally untenable to expect CFS volunteers to do this job, which is the role of our very hard-working ambulance staff.
Yeah, it seems odd that we're kind of, in a sense, retooling the CFS during perhaps, you could argue, a lower fire danger period that we've been through in recent years when it comes to the wetter vegetation and wetter conditions, so we haven't had the extreme heat in recent years. Is the government sort of secretly retooling the CFS for other purposes?
Well, that'll be interesting, and it'll be up for the government to fully outline what they're going to do with this. I mean, they've set up this so-called task force investigating how to do first responses, seeing they've so mismanaged the first response from a government level. And they've already got the MFS at the table, they've got the government at the table, but where are the CFS? They haven't got the CFS at the table, and if they're contemplating using the CFS, they should have a front row at the table so they know exactly what's going on. It is outrageous. Our hard-working health workers need the extra support so that they can do the job that they can, whether it's the doctors, the nurses, whether it's right through the hospital system in this state, and our very hard-working AMBOs, to try and turn this whole picture of emergency action around and place it on our fireys is outrageous, as I indicated earlier, and the state Labor government under Peter Malinauskas must fix it.
Now, Adrian, you mentioned about the ramping situation. Largely that's going on in metropolitan areas, but is the government adequately resourcing the staffing and volunteering in the ambulance service in regional South Australia?
Well, we put in when we were in government, we started building extra ambulance stations across the state. The Labor government have made some announcements of more ambulance staff coming into the system. I think they've said over 100 paramedics. I'm not sure how many of those have actually come in. I think it'd be very, very minimal numbers. But there is need for more ambulance staff in the regions, but the government must also address the bed block. We've got regional hospitals that have got emergency departments closed. For instance, Gumaraka, Mount Pleasant and Strathalbyn, which is in my electorate. Their emergency departments have closed, so we don't even have access for the good citizens of those regions into those hospitals.
Well, Adrian, that's something we'll follow up further with the government and opposition spokespeople on health. But thanks very much for talking with us today. Adrian Pederick, Shadow Minister for Emergency Services.
Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, listeners.